Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, wake up, guys. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, much better. Good morning, all those who are watching us online as well. We are very happy to have a full house today, as we have our lunch and learn as well. But before we feed our tummy, let's feed our minds and our hearts. Today the lecture is going to be message to parents. I see a lot of parents here, so that's really good. So before we do, as always, Philip is going to do the initial reading and prayer for us.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start by a message with the happy life by default. Be open to new ideas. Discuss them, compare them with what you know and think. Get the most benefit possible out of information that is new to you. Healthy ideas renew the emotions and supply the feelings with stimuli and enthusiasm. Nobody is so wise that they do not need to learn more or so complete that they can dispense with other contributions to their inner goal. Learn more and be receptive to new contributions. So let us now all together and be thankful with our God, our Master Jesus, for one more opportunity to be here on such a beautiful day and be together here with for the same purpose. We hope everybody can take a message and learn as much as possible. And we also ask to get our friend Marco inspired and deliver the message as well. So thanks again for the opportunity, and so be it. Thank you, Mark. Now we have Marco for the lecture.
All right. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. It's an enormous pleasure to one more time be here with you guys and discussing some very important messages. And particularly today that we're going to talk specifically about message to parents, and we can summarize that as a little bit of a prime in Spiritism and education and parenthood, and how can we learn together and take in the immense amount of knowledge that Spiritism provides us and put that into practice in our families, with our kids, and with ourselves. So that's the goal of today. And as a reference, I'm going to be using primarily the Spirit's book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. I'm also going to be referencing quite significantly Walter Oliveira Alves, which is a Spiritist from Brazil that does tremendous work on kids' education, particularly the book called Spirit Education. Is a free translation. The book is actually Educação do Espírito. And as I'm here today facilitating this, but also learning, right? Because as a parent myself, in this incarnation and probably other ones before, and being, through this enormous cycles that we go through in our lives, I'm also learning, right? So if you're frustrated that I don't have all the answers, that's great, because we're going to find them together, right? Because I don't. Right? We have lots of resources to learn from and to study, as we'll see. But it always comes to a point that we're going to take those resources and make good use of them. Right? The resources are always available. So I'm going to take you guys into this little journey about what it is to be a parent today. What is the outcome? And what can we do to make it a better experience for all of us? So we're going to start by describing a little bit of what we're going through now. If you look at the planet Earth now, we know based on many spirits communications and spirits books and many other resources available to us that we're going through some type of transition on our planet. And this is such a much anticipated event that, particularly in Spiritism, we talk about this all the time. And we still have this interesting idea that the planetary transition is some kind of cataclysmic event that things will all of a sudden wrap around and swish it, like you put it in a blender and you mix it and all of a sudden spits out completely something different out of it. And that's actually not really the case. So we're going through, it's a very slow and steady process. And in planetary transition, we always understand that, this is going to be now a world of regeneration, like a regeneration world, so we're evolving. But we tend to think that the planet itself is the only one that's changing, like this little home that we have right now. It's our little school for all of us. It's transition. It's like a planetary transition. Right? So the planet is transitioning. Guess what? Actually, we're the ones changing too. We're changing, right? So everything evolves in the universe. We know that from the little grain of sand in a beach, right? From the molten lava rock that moves itself around the flow of the river, be round, and then takes in pieces, and then in tiny little pieces breaks apart, turns into a little crystal. There is action in everything in the planetary universe, us too. So a planetary transition is a moment that we are particularly involved, and we are at the forefront of it. That's us, right? We're part of it. And it's interesting because look around today. We hear the word, so probably one of the most common words nowadays will be two, actually, fake and crisis. Those are the two most common words you're going to hear today. And that's kind of troubling, right? Because the idea of now everything being fake and deep fake and, that's quite problematic because it kind of suggests to us that we're going to a moment that there is a credibility crisis. Right? So we don't trust things anymore. Even what's true. But what is true and false? And that's exactly what this idea of a fake moment in history. And I'm not talking about presidents specifically. I'm talking about many other things involved, right? There's always this whole idea. And at the same time, almost tagging along with that concept comes the word crisis. And we know that even if you think about our own country, we hear about that quite often. Not only here, about our neighbors down south, but in the whole planet. But what is a crisis, right? So I like to take the definition when you think about crisis from Italian philosopher Gramsci. So this is what he said. So crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born yet. That's a crisis. Right? So basically we have something that's not working well, so it's dying. Can't really function that well anymore. And we have something new coming, but it's not really ready yet to be implemented. So we're right in this hiatus, like in this space in time, where things seems to be a little bit chaotic. So that is a good definition for crisis. We can borrow from our other traditions that believe, for example, the crisis is a moment of transformation. Is the push, is that energy that is you're missing that is kind of give you that little bump that you have to make a decision. So that's what a crisis is. It's a tough moment. So you will decide. And the decision will either solve or make it worse. Right? And if you make it worse, you're going to have another decision. And then eventually you'll come out of it. So crisis is not a definitive event is a transition, right? Now we have crisis in credibility, in families, in moral values. When we talk about fake, one of the critical aspects of the idea of things being fake now in general, or not true, or not credible, is that the moral concepts are also involved in that little concept, the moral concept. And that's troubling. Because now what we used to believe for sure that, we cannot do this to another human being, right? That's bottom line. We've learned that, right? I cannot mistreat someone because of their religious beliefs or their skin color or their sexual orientation, whatever that is that the person decides to do. I'm not supposed to judge that and start treating those individuals differently, right? That's a basic concept. But all of a sudden, that is wrapped around the same crisis that we're living now. Because, there are conflicting concepts that will emerge that will kind of try to tell you that that's still okay. That's fake. Things that you took for granted, you always believed, all of a sudden people question it to say, maybe, no, that's not the way to do it. And we make us think. How can we escape a crisis like that? There's only one way. And Spiritists bring this to us. Education. In all aspects of it. Right? But the message today is particularly important because we know we're going through this moment of so-called crisis. But at the same time, we're bringing a new generation in. Right? And believe it or not, those are the ones that are going to continue this process for us, right? We're not going to be here soon, relatively soon, right? If you think about the world's time, in a flick of a second, we're going to go and come back at some point, right? Because 30, 40, 50 years in the scheme of things is actually nothing, right? So another team will come up and pick up. So that's important, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because what can we do to make that transition time better for all of us, right? And for the little ones, okay? Now you're going to hear a lot about what's the goal then, like what we're going to, like what's really what we're doing here, right? So if we're really trying to take a message, move forward, what is the goal? And Spiritists help us with that too. So if you go to chapter 14 in the Gospel according to Spiritism, it's going to talk about our responsibility. And this is what it says. O Spiritists, you must understand the great part that humanity has to play. Yes. You must understand that when a body is created, the soul which incarnates has come from the spiritual world in order to progress. We know that, like all the kids. So understand your duty and then put all your love into bringing this soul closer to God. The care and education given by you to this child will help its improvement and future well-being. And, in other words, will change things, right? The whole vibration of our planet. So that's our responsibility now. Okay? So the goal is moral education. Now, let's talk about another crisis now. So, think about this. What do you expect from a 4-year-old today? You expect them to do what? Like, just think about it, like a 3-4-year-old. Do you expect them to read?
Expect too much, I guess, sometimes.
Yes. So do you expect them to
Understand.
understand, like it? Okay. Yes. Do you expect them you to tell him, you're not supposed to do this, because that's quite unsafe for you. So just don't do it again, okay? And they're never going to do that again, right? That's what you expect. Do we do that?
All the time.
You guys? When your boss tells like, oh, you shouldn't do this, it's like you say, oh, maybe I'm just going to try it, right? So see how it goes. What else do we expect from them? Be amazing piano players, right? That we see in YouTube videos, right? You see a 4-year-old playing Bach, and you say, okay, Mozart, and you say, maybe I'll register my kid in a piano class, and if they don't play, right, a sonata for piano, in 2 weeks, that's bad, right? And then we unconsciously pressure them, right? What else we expect from a 3-year-old?
To wait his time.
Wait, yes, exactly. And what is the reference of time they have in their mind?
10 minutes. Everything's 10 minutes, right?
Yes. And what does 10 minutes mean for them?
Yeah, nothing.
God
It
knows,
could be
right?
1 hour or 30 seconds.
It could be a week, right? It could be a second. Interesting. See, we're starting to come up with some interesting points here. Okay? And that all tags along with the whole idea of education and transitions, right? It is absolutely true, and we have evidence of that spirits incarnating now, they are coming with some sort of baggage. Because listen, we're always talking about having babies, right? We're having babies, you know. We're not having babies. We're having a 1,000,000-old spirit that's coming packaged into this little cuddly body, right? And we forget about that. So if I tell you right now, you're expecting a baby to say, you know, you're having like a 100-year-old lady or gentleman, you're probably going to laugh at me, right? So what are you talking about? Who asked that to Jesus? You remember that? The very smart guy at the time asked, how can we come back again? You remember? Jesus already answered that to us. And we know that, right? But then when they're packaged in the nice little cuddly shape in the body, that's important to us because that's the moment of time that we have that we can get over things and love them and teach them, right? That's a very important time in our existence. And that's why they come that way. And then even Kardec answers that. Well, so why is it important for them to come back, like every single time come back to as a kid? Because technically, we could have evolved in a way that our babies would walk and run and talk in about a month. That's possible, right? Other animals do that. And they're, you know, we're not talking about spiritual evolution of animals here. That's going to be another lecture. But, see, in evolution, it's completely possible for a baby to walk in a day. But they don't. Why is that? First of all, creation is perfect, right? So we're not questioning that, oh, God forgot about this. Like they probably hit the delete button somewhere in the code, and then all of a sudden things collapse afterwards, right? That's not what happened. They need us. They need us because there's always a reason, either because of us, or because of the baby, or because of something. I don't know. I don't need to know. Right? I don't need to spend my energy trying to figure out things. Oh, why is this happening? You need to act. So there's always a reason for that. So they're highly dependent on us. One of the most dependent animals, babies, it's actually us, believe it or not. Right? We need to feed them, change them, carry them, protect them, you know, all sorts of things that you know. We need to do it for a long time. Right? And during that time, what are you actually objectively doing? Are you thinking about that spirit as a 100-year-old man or woman? No. You're just caring. Caring is loving. Now, what if I tell you that that same spirit killed you 100 times? Would you love them the same way? I wouldn't. I can tell you that. I'm not evolved to that point yet. Right? I will. Right? We know we will. But what if I tell you that, and we know the stories, right? What if I tell that same spirit is the one that kind of fought for the love of the woman of your life, which is now your mother, and now you guys are in the same triangle again, but now you can decide to come back as a kid because that's the only way you can love that individual. For a year, 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, you can still love them completely and truly without coming back to the same challenges and emotions and issues that you have with them before, right? So that is part of the educational, moral education of the spirit. Well, let's go back to the 3-year-old story because I find it quite interesting, right? So I remember I was once in the Toronto Zoo, and I was passing by with the kids, and there was multiple families walking around. I remember quite strikingly, there was a little girl, probably like a 2 or 3 year old, and she wanted something. I can't remember exactly what, and there was a big struggle because she adamantly needed that, whatever it is, like a popsicle or something. And the family entirely was trying to convey the message that was not appropriate at that particular time. There were 500 kids around her having the same thing, like a little popsicle, right? And that is a challenge, right? Because we do expect them to understand that it's not their option to have that now. It's that the other kids have the option. They don't have the option. And we expect them to take them gladly, right? Oh, Mama, yes. I can barely talk, but I can say that to you. Thank you very much for saving me from that 25 grams of sugar in that popsicle now. Because that's not something that I need for my life at this moment. I understand at some point I'll be able to make decisions, and I'll be able to have 50 grams of sugar, right? In a Frappuccino from Starbucks that I absolutely adore, but has 62 grams of sugar on it. But my kid cannot have 25 in a popsicle because that's really, really bad. So I totally understand it, and I'm never going to ask that for that again. That's what we expect, right? Talk about expectations versus what's happening. And then we get frustrated, right? Because they don't understand. And then we completely lose control. And then it's a tough challenge. Am I judging the parent? Zero. Nada. I've been through that. I know exactly how it works, right? It's not easy. But it's important for us to rethink what we're doing as parents regarding the expectations of the spirit that is starting to learn who he is or she is. Right? Does anyone do gardening here a little bit? Okay. Yes. Okay. So you guys will understand. So what happens? So you know the concept of pruning, right? So you have to kind of take care of the garden. So you have to take out some little branches here and there occasionally, right? To make your plant grow better, nicely, in the shape that is safe for the plant. The plant is not thinking about that, right? But you protect, right? You do that. So when you start to see, so the same concept, and that's being applied very often for kids too, right? We have a tendency nowadays that we want to be loved by kids, right? Do we want our kids to love us? Yes, right? Of course. And we want them to start loving us when they're 1 day old. They look at us, it's like, oh, that was a kiss, that's so beautiful, right? She absolutely loves it. Love is one of the most challenging concepts to learn for everyone. Kids have a hard time doing it too. Right? But we do have that necessity to feel that. It's almost like we were all teenagers all of a sudden. Like we depend on that. We need to feed on that. Right? And that's quite problematic because it prevents us from pruning, from doing what we're supposed to do. An example, and I know, I think it was one of the lectures now I remember, but there an interesting story of this family. What was that? I'll remember now. When was the place that I heard that story? But the family, went to the States. The father bought them like a package to see Mickey Mouse and gave them like $5,000 to buy and stuff, and they're all sent all the kids away, right? And then the parents were all excited to come back and kind of see, oh, how was the trip? And the kids were like, it's okay. So, oh, what you get? It's like, oh, it's like a Mickey. Yeah. And then, did you get something for me? Like really? Did you want? No? Yeah, that's right. Was Lisandro? No, what was that? I don't remember now. Hosandro. Yeah, it was Hosandro. Yes, Hosandro. That's right. And then they were like, oh, the father said, oh, it's actually my birthday today. And the kids were like what? And then, but the father absolutely needed to be loved, right? He needed that. It's like, the kids, and the way they kind of found that they're trying to do that is by giving them material things, right? Experiences and cash and stuff, right? Or allowing them to do things that will otherwise not be acceptable, right? In a way to kind of gain its way back into being cool, right? Almost like he's being a buddy, like a friend, not necessarily a parent. And then at some point they were also complaining about other things too. So they got back, they had this, and then Josandro was there with them in the car at the time. And then Josandro said, you know what? And then the father was obviously distraught because it was not working, right? And then Josandro told the father's like, you know what? It's time for you to go back and be a father again, because you've never been a father to those kids. Because instead of expecting respect, you're expecting love. Right? Believe me, love is optional. Right? Remember that the kids that are coming, remember we talked about this, they're very, very old spirits. They may not love you the way you expect them to. And that's fine. Right? We make an option to love them. It's our responsibility. Right? And what is mandatory here is respect. So pruning applies to. So go back to the Spirit's book now and the Gospel of Spiritism. So what is our responsibility as parents then? Is to educate those spirits, provide them, love them, without expecting too much back. That applies to everything. And believe me, it's mandatory for love to have respect first. Can you love your partner and not respect them? Is that possible? What comes first? When you go on a date, right? The first time and you're kind of knowing each other, right? The first thing that's going to stand, is it the respect that one have for another, or is like one saying that you love one another? Doesn't make any sense. Like you go to the first date, say I love you, like I'm desperately in love with you. It's like it doesn't work, right? But showing respect, understanding each other, and building the trustful relationship that's needed, that is the essence and the basis of love. We all agree on that. That is valid for kids too. Okay. So, I know what's happening now. So, remember the story, I told you the story of the 3-year-old that wanted a popsicle, right? But you wouldn't get, because of many reasons. I'm not debating whether or not you give popsicle to kids. That's beyond the point. It's not a story. But what happened is, at that moment, the parent made a decision that, maybe this is not the best for you right now. And that's okay. They have their reasons for it. Took it away. The kid threw a tantrum. Right? What does God do to us? Now, grown-ups. Right? We're provided with the tools for evolution, right? To be better, to grow up, right? To do things. We're provided the skills to have a job, or to get a PhD, or to have a little badges, right? That we can go to work, right? We're provided with the financial aids that are needed, or not, because sometimes that is what you have to go through, right? But we're provided with what we need. And let's say like halfway through the process, we decided that the most important thing for me is, I don't know, to buy a $500,000 car. That's the most important thing. That comes first, right? Maybe, have you thought about the possibility that our father, just like the other parents did with the kid, will just say, that's not the best thing for you, right? Something's going to happen. You're going to lose it. Or it could be material, or it could be whatever that is, or it could be some type of deviation of behavior, or it could be something that we acquired that we think is amazing and that's what we have to do, right? We lose it, transient, and we throw a tantrum, same way. Our tantrums are a little bit different though. Like we tend not to throw ourselves on the floor and kind of flip around. That's not the typical, although I've seen that before. And people go to hospital because of that. happens. But anyways, that's a different story. So our tensions tend to be a little bit different. We got frustrated, we got irritated, we start to be aggressive with other people, right? We start to make everyone's life miserable around us because we're so frustrated because something really, really bad happened and I'm being punished. Dada, no, you're not being punished. And I tell this example here. So my kid, like my older Daniel, one day decided that, I told him, like, you can jump the last step of the stairs. Basically, we go to the last little step of the stair, and then you can jump to the floor, basically, like one step down, that's fine. One day he decided that 14 steps would be fine, right? So he could jump 14 steps down, okay? I said no, right? Would you say yes? Thank God, because I was like, okay, I'm being judged now. So, God does that to us too, right? Why not? We are kids too. Same. Look at your kid. They're not very different from you, except this particular incarnation, this particular time, they are reacquiring their full selves, and they will have opportunities to learn, right? But in the long scheme of things, we're exactly the same, right? And our dad over there will say no to us a lot of times. And, we're going to feel that as a punishment many, many times, right? So I told him, like, no, you can't do that. That I really wanted. Like, that's really what I want, right? And it's going to be so exciting, right? It's so nice. I'm going to jump. And it's like, no, you're going to actually crash down the floor. It's going to be bad. Go to the hospital. Can they understand that? At some point they will, I guess. Right? But at early ages, they cannot. So we have to be responsible as parents to say no. Respect. Right? So we are responsible for that. We can't just say that kids, yeah, sure, do it. Oh, yeah, fine. Oh, my 3-year-old is so mature, They're super elevated. They are what do you call that? The kids that are coming incarnated now. That's the new big theme now. I'll remember that. Indigo. Oh, the Indigo kid. Yeah, it's like absolutely. They can take care of themselves already. Look, that does not work like that. Stop it. They need us, big time, and they need to hear from us that they can't do things, and they need to have the moral basis of their progression, of their evolution is us. Right? So is that a crisis? Big time. Right? Because what we're seeing now is this transition moment in time that for some reason we're expecting more and more and more and more of younger and younger and younger kids. And if they don't reach the super high bars that we set up for them, things are bad. The other story is think about kids that go to special classes and because they're super smart kids. That happens very often. And what's the problem with that? I'm not judging here sending to a special school or not. That's not the point. The point is evolution is not only intellectual, it's moral. What is our responsibility big time is solidifying moral evolution in kids. By example, first, right? By action, and by saying no when it's needed. A lot. I'm going to say that a lot. Believe me, that's probably the most common word in my house. Right? With your kids? Right? And that's okay. Right? Because if we don't say no, who's going to say no to them? And then the respect is lost. Remember we talked about respect versus love. But now we have parents going to therapy now because they're not in love with their kids. Are they respected? That's the question. Right? And that's really something really, really important that we have to remember. Okay? So another important aspect of this is that, when you think about this particular window in time that we have, which is critical, right? We're now seeing the world is a little bit challenging, right, for teaching kids nowadays. I think you guys are going to agree, right? Because the entire system is targeting them very, very early. I I set up a challenge for you guys. If you go into one, I know most people don't look at TV channels anymore, so I'm streaming, like I'll decide what I'm gonna watch, that's fine. But how about one day you try to go into, like, see apps that have ads on them? Have you ever heard of that? Like apps you go in and then you go with a level, they're free. Right? They're amazing tools, they're free. They're not free, they actually take a lot of money from you. Right? And I explain why. You can download them. Just be careful. So when you go to those ads, try to see exactly what they're selling. Just one day, just actually look carefully. What are they going to be selling? There's actually research on it now showing that. So they're targeting things that are very, very addictive and needed in a way. So there will be either drinks or food that have like a very, very sugar content, which is addictive, right? Or have like beautiful colors and shapes and patterns that are gonna be used when you're adult. It's just like a different shape and form. For example, there'll be like little cupcakes, right? Little cupcakes for kids, but then obviously there's a sweet industry, candy industry that will survive on that. When you're 50, you're still having the same thing, right? Or there will be tools or toys that reflect an imagery. So an imagery that we expect, either a princess or a prince or a castle or like some type of material things, like a gigantic yacht that comes with a doll. So the doll needs a yacht. Have you ever thought about how crazy that is? Like a doll that needs a yacht? Seriously? I know. Like I don't know. Or where do dolls live? Is it in a 2-bedroom condo?
Mansions.
So what car does Ken drive? Does he drive
Ferrari.
a subcompact? Green energy? No. He uses some sort of Ferrari or something like that? So do you think the dolls are coming? They're coming with flip-flops and sweatshirts? No. Maybe one. Yeah, there's one option. Yeah, that's another option too. That's another story though. Can't go into that today. But they are targeting specifically things that are very difficult to control, right? And we're living in that environment, so it's a very difficult fight, right? Because when we say no to those things, we're basically challenging the whole system. Okay. So let's talk about video games then. So do you have an idea what's the most played video game ever?
Super Mario.
Yeah, it's called Crossfire. Yeah, it's 650 million users. What do you do in that video game? Fantastic. So on the top 10 video games ever by users, 6 of them are either you're killing someone or you're fighting for your life by killing, like you're doing something that's involved, like knifing someone or whatever. And typically, though, rewards on those games are the most weird is whatever you're doing, the best it is. Like you gain more like fame, you're famous, right? Because not even that, there's a type of cruelty that survives on that. Do you have an idea what's the #1 watched video on YouTube? Is that like how to have a happy life kind of thing? No. How to teach your kids how? No. Let's be happy together. No. It's called Despacito. The music. Yes. It has 5.17 billion views. Yes. And I'm not going to talk about what the song is referring to, and that's beyond the point. But I can tell you, it's not something fun and happy, right? Although you may like the music of it, the story behind it may not be as good as you imagine. Anyway, that's a different story. So now there's gigantic amount of research. Now there's a recent review of many papers published in October last year that showed that yes, violent video games do affect behavior. There are some discordant papers out there, but now with this a systematic review, it's very difficult to challenge that point. It's pretty much accepted now, right? So increase is violent behavior, disconnecting from peers, challengings at home, cognitive delay. Like there's a whole lot of things associated with that. Okay. And what do we do with the kids? Do we say no, or do we actually buy the most up-to-date video games? What do you guys think?
It's actually getting high-paid jobs now.
It's
for
hard.
playing.
I know they're getting money out of it. At some point, they're able to buy their own video games and do whatever they want. Perfect, right? But until they reach that point, we are responsible. We are. Right? And I'm not fighting the video game industry here. That's not my role. But my role is to look what you're doing. Just watch them playing the game. If you're not grossed out by 10 seconds out of it, because you're trying to take off the hat of someone with a sledgehammer, and you think that's okay, there's something wrong. Oh, it's virtual reality. Do you know that our brains function exactly the same way when you're presented with virtual reality and reality? The areas in the brain that light up are pretty much the same. So it means that we as spirits are living that moment, even if it's not real. We're experiencing the same way. The hormones, the emotions, the muscle twinges, the energy that you think is the same. So who do you think is going to be around us when we're killing someone with a sledgehammer in the head? Jesus? He's always with us, by the way. But we're going to be blocking him, right? So think about the spiritual environment in that place. Oh, but it's my home, it's protected. It's only protected if you are in tune with it. If you're not, it's going to be very hard to protect your place. They try. Believe me, you give a lot of work to your guardian angel, working extra time, minutes, bonus points for him, right? Because they're literally going to be kind of shaking him off, like, for Christ's sake, can you just give me 1 second? Right? So when you listen to music with your kids, did you ever thought about reading the lyrics of the songs they're listening to? Who does that? I've done it a few times. Because I couldn't understand the lyrics anyway, so I had to actually download it and read it. Right? So I actually had challenged, do that. Next time they say, I wanted this song because it's kind of a new upbeat and kind of fun thing. Just think about it. Right? What is that message embedded into that? And don't tell me they don't understand it, right? Because if you believe that, I think we need another lecture, right? They let their kids, their babies, their kids, they're old spirits. They do. They understand. They've lived through that before. Stop faking yourself, talk about fake things. Stop that attitude that, that's fine. Oh, they're just kids. No, yeah, they're just kids, absolutely. And they need to live as kids. But whatever you expose them to, whatever they're exposed to, is going to be the building blocks foundation of who they're going to be. So if you're not giving them the environment they need to thrive from their own vices they're carrying, so you're not helping them. And that's exactly what Kardec's telling us. Question 208, the Spirit's book. Right? It is our responsibility. We have to be responsible for that. And if we are the most hated parents in the universe, but we're able to give an opportunity for these kids to learn respect and to be an adult that respects others. We're talking about Me Too moments and all that stuff, too, right? Everything combined. We're growing adults that were really upset with us when we were young, right? Because we said no many times. But now they are part of a society where they respect each other and they're building and they're responsible and they're helping others in the society. Kudos for you. Great job. That's what we need to do. And now, the moment is difficult because, again, as I explained, we're living in a type of society that is really making it a lot harder for us to do that. because how interconnected we are, how ideas are spread, how things are sold, how things are targeted to us, right? So think about that, okay? Do you want another example? So I'll give you another example. So, like every kid now has access to a computer, and that's great, right? They should, right? We're not talking about here, say, oh, when I was a kid, I didn't have a computer, so right now you don't have a computer because, see, I'm a happy person, and then you're going to be happy. That doesn't work. Like, come on, let's stop that, okay? So we live in a society that is connected. People need it. We have access to a lot of tools. We need to teach them how to use those tools. Don't take them away. Like, take them away does not work. I can guarantee you, right? Because they will find a way to do things, okay? So if you want to block access to websites, for example, to kids, the best way to do it is educate them. Because if you block the IP address of the website, they'll find ways around it. I can guarantee you that too. Okay, they're smart. Okay? So if, your kid is playing a video game, which is like a violent video game, and you say no, will they be happy or sad? Or unhappy? What do you think?
Sad.
Yeah, they're going to be very unhappy, right? And remember we told you about this, like God does the same thing to us, right? When we're all excited about one thing that sometimes is not the right path, we're going to be taking that path out of us, we're going to be very unhappy, okay? And that's okay, right? And that's the whole idea. That is all okay, right? Another thing that we hear a lot is, I hear parents saying that quite often, is that, well, if I knew the reincarnatory plans for my kid, I would be a much better parent. Like, that would be like the best thing I could do, exactly what we're proposed to do. So have you ever thought about the amount of energy we think trying to figure out, now we're in Spiritists particularly, because we know the reincarnation, how that works, how much energy we spend trying to figure out what's planned and actually not doing it? Because every minute you spend trying to figure out why things are happening is a minute that you wasted not actually improving yourself and do it. We have the knowledge. You have lots available, right? So education is primarily based on and that's from the report, it's called Deller's report. It's based on 4 pillars, okay? And we're going to end with that information today. So that's defined by UNESCO and also and now taken by most of the education systems around the world. So it's to know, to do, to be, and to live together. So there's the 4 pillars of education. That's exactly what Kardec brings to us in Spiritism. Because remember, Kardec is also studied with Pestalozzi, but most of that information comes from Pestalozzi. So to know is obviously to learn, develop basic knowledge on subjects. So you go to school, you learn to know things. So you learn, that you can, boil water, turn it into vapor, then it condenses, come down as a rain. All the kids do that experiments, right? That's important to know. That's knowledge, right? We need that. Okay. There's another concept that comes tied along with this, like to do, which is to put in practice what we learn. Give you an example. So an engineer go to school. When he was very young, he learned that the shapes and forms, the triangle, rectangle, square, and what's the difference between them, the angles and size. And then later on, you learn how to calculate angles on a triangle, and then you have to calculate area. And then you keep going. Up to some point, you go to school, an engineer, they will learn actually how to build an entire building or to systems or mechanic engineer. Like there's so many different types. So there's an evolution of education there, but eventually they'll learn how to put in practice all those concepts. Now thinking about moral education, how do we do that? Right? Exactly. So if you learn a new concept in your moral evolution, right? And we learn a few of those. For example, we have to love one another, right? We all kind of heard about that before. Did you put that into practice? We're trying, right? So we recognize by the efforts we put into practice by making those changes. Not by being perfect, And that's another problem today, another crisis. The crisis of expected perfection, I call it. Everyone is expected to be perfect. In your families, in your colleagues, and one day someone's going to be upset or is going to say something to you. All of a sudden that person's not good anymore because, I expect perfection from everyone. Or I expect perfection from myself and then I can't achieve it. I'm going to be quite depressed. I can tell you that. Right? And I expect perfection from a kid. You're not perfect. Oh, my kid's perfect. Oh, no. Sorry. I want to bust your bubble, but that's not possible. We're not there yet. Right? So that creates a crisis, and then the to-do part of the education becomes quite problematic. Because if you think you're perfect, or you've learned so much that you're ready into another level of evolution, then you can't really even recognize your problems anymore. How can you fix it if you don't even know what the problem is? Right? That's called fascination. And that's one of the most tragic forms, for example, in spiritual obsessions and influences in the spiritual world, can possibly be. Because that's the easiest way to tackle you. If you think you're really like a superstar, all I have to say is come back to your side and say, yeah, you're a superstar. That's all I have to say. And I walk out, and that's it. You're already under my spiritual influence. Right? Because I'm just reinforcing something that you already believe firmly on. And you can't be wrong. So even if other people come to you and say, you know what? You're not right. You're wrong. You're not that evolved. All of a sudden you brush them off and say, of course, what are you talking about? Like, look, that's me. Like, I'm perfect. Right? We expect the same thing from kids. The other one is to be. Right? So to be means develop autonomy, judgment, and responsibility. Because with learning comes responsibility. I'm responsible for what I learn. Right? So what it means is that in truth, and that's in Spirit's book now, Kardec told us in Spirit's answer that if you're looking at an individual that really has never ever had the opportunity of learning a specific concept, right? And they make an offense, they are punishable for that offense, but in a different level than someone who has learned a lot about that particular concept and is still making an offense. So things are judged differently, right? Because we are responsible for what we learn. Okay? And the last one is called to live together. And I think that's probably one of the most challenging ones. Right? Live in harmony. Respect other people. Differences. That's another crisis. Right? The fact that we cannot anymore discuss things directly with other people because all of a sudden comes in some type of animosity and aggression. I can't simply just believe something that's slightly different from another. Do you think that's a problem nowadays? Okay, if you say no, I'm in trouble. It is, right? It is a big problem. With kids too, right? I'll give you an example. So we're all, there's a group of parents together, kids are playing, and then all of a sudden someone will start to share a very challenging story. Oh, my kid did this, and they slapped my face, and it was so... Believe me, 3-year-olds can do that. Right? Why not?
Yes.
Right? Don't they do that? And we have to learn and deal with that. Right? And it's challenging for a parent. Believe me, I've been there too. I know exactly what it is. And the immediate response is just slap them back right away. Like, what are you talking about? Right? And if you've done that before, that's okay too. We're all learning. Right? I'm not here promoting spanking. That's not what I'm doing. But what I'm saying is that when you're exposed to certain specific situations, sometimes the reaction is quite difficult, and we do things that we may rethink afterwards, but it's part of a learning process. Right? Anyway, so the parents start to share, and that's another part of Master to Parents. We're going to end with that. Parents start to share stuff. It's like it's been challenging and this and that. Very, very often. Another parent will say, "Oh, Mike, that's. How did you do that? What are you doing? You're such a bad, horrible parent. My kid's perfect. See, because of my environment, my kid will never do that to me. Right? Bad parent. Slap in the face. Right? Again. What are we doing as a society? we judge parenting. Like, I think that's probably the number one judging thing we do all the time. And I've done that before. Before having kids, many years ago. I was in, I think I was in San Diego. And there was this gigantic tantrum, like right in front of me, like a 4 or 5 year old, literally like flipping and doing all sorts of things. And the mother was trying everything in the planet to control the situation. She couldn't. And I was the one that looked, I walked by, I was like, oh, jeez, like, what's going on? And even Joyce, my wife, afterwards we talked about, so there has to be some kind of issue with house or the upbringing, like what are they teaching, how they're doing it. No, none of that. We're part of it, but a lot of it comes from the Spirit. There's nothing we can do with that. We can help them, big time. There are many things we can do to help, right? But we cannot judge parenting based on those scenarios, right? We can help them, right, with some advice, of course, with some Spiritist teaching, right? How to approach that scenario, right? Because some parents obviously flip it and lose it with the kid, and then there's a whole disaster that starts, right? So both tantrums now, and that's I think what happened that day. Because Ben, you know, remember the adult tantrum is a little bit different, right? But we're both having tantrums. We can help, but can never judge, because I can tell you we've been through that after. And I can tell you how difficult it is, right? So to live together means respect the differences, understand the other one's challenges, right? And if you can help, please help. If you cannot help, don't judge, right? It's very difficult, right? And if you have kids at home and your kids are giving you a hard time, there's always a reason for that, right? So what we have to do as parents is solidify our understanding of our role in providing to these kids and look at them as an adult it's asking for help. Package that little body. Sometimes we have to do that because we have to understand that that's a spirit that comes with the baggage. It has a history, right? We have to love them, we're not here to expect this overblown love back, but we're expecting respect, right? And work together doing your part in accordance with the love, and you will be fine, even if they decide not to do well afterwards. It's their responsibility, okay? So I want to take this moment to take a little bit off the shoulder of the parents who are going through a hard time, understanding that we have a role, we do everything we can, but at some point, spirits will make decisions using their free will, and from that point on, if you've done, and that's in Kardec's book, in the chapter number 14, God according to Spiritism, right? We do all our part, and at some point, it's up to them to decide what to do, right? But when we have the window of time to work, let's not expect more than they can give us, okay? Let's expect respect back and love them fully and work with them. Looking at yourself too, because sometimes we are part of it because of the past histories that we have, right? So forgive, right? It's not like, oh, what happened before? No, I don't care. Like, I just forgive. Let's move on, right? Move on with them so you can provide to these kids the opportunities, okay, they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Marco. Does anyone have any questions, any comments? Anyone online? One at a time, please. Don't get that excited.
No rush, no rush.
No rush. Nothing? Really? Okay.
I talk too much.
No, you never did that. No, don't. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those who joined us online. We invite you to do a prayer at home. And for those who are here, we're going to do our passes now.